there's a lot of like financial stuff as well that nobody really knew. And like, I couldn't get an accountant in the UK. I couldn't get a bank account. And like people like make like, you'd have people on Twitter going like, why do you need a bank account? It's crypto. And it's like, because unfortunately I'm not a non.
GM, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Screen with Gramajo. I'm your host, Gramajo, a crypto enthusiast that has been in the space since 2012 and joined the NFT space in 2021. In this podcast, we unravel the stories, the insights, the secrets of top-tier artists, avid collectors, and innovative builders shaping the digital frontier, better known as Web3. This week's episode is very special to me. George, or OMGiDRAWEDit, is one of those artists that when I first joined the space back in 2021, he was all the Raven Tezos. Everybody was trying to get one of his bedroom series pieces. It's an artist that I've admired from afar for a very long time, and this is a very special episode for me. I'm happy that I got to do it. Thank you, George, for doing this, for opening up, for talking about the highs, the lows that you've experienced in the last couple of years. So let's dive in. Hope you guys enjoy it. So yeah, do you wanna give me an intro of yourself? Up to you of how much doxing you want to do. But yeah, do you want to just give me an intro of yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am known as OMGiDRAWEDit in the art space, but yeah, you can call me George.
Awesome, and you're from the UK, right?
I am indeed, yeah, Southwest UK, near a place called Cornwall, which quite a lot of people usually have heard of Cornwall. It's like quite a nice coastal area. We're about an hour from Cornwall, but we're about
Nice.
but about 2.5, 3 hours from London. So like, it's a really nice place in the Southwest.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have heard of Cornwall, so I follow the Premier League a lot. So
Oh, of course, yeah.
that's how I end up knowing a lot of my geography of
Hey,
the UK is mostly through, or not even the UK, but just like in general from sports as a whole,
sure.
which helps. Yeah. So, and you've been an artist before Web3, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I've been doing creative, like I studied creative subjects at school and then university, well, college actually, and then university. So I've been doing kind of creative stuff my entire life, really. But started focusing specifically on kind of illustration and drawing, when I went to university, which was when I was sort of 26, 27. And I'm 37 nearly now. So yeah, been sort of drawing full time professionally for the best part of 10 years.
Yeah, I saw that as well. That you had been doing this now for over 10 years, which is impressive, man.
Yeah, it feels like it's real now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Did you, let's see, so you went to school for art, or did you just go to school for not art?
So I did art subjects at college, after high school. I know things are like, it's confusing, like the UK high school and college is like different ages, I think, to quite a lot of other countries. But I did film and video and photography as my kind of chosen subjects at college, art subjects, and I really enjoyed them. But the thing that I really enjoyed the most after studying those subjects was the kind of sketchbook storyboarding work that went along with it. And I think that's when I realized that I was kind of like more interested in the sort of drawing elements. And I also realized, well, I was talking about my photography a little bit the other day, and I don't do really any photography anymore, if I'm completely honest. But apart from the kind of stuff that everybody does, like a few phone photos. But I used to set up for my photography projects, one of the things I did was make scenes that were quite detailed with like objects and detritus and stuff. And I realized that that's kind of like exactly how I draw now. So I obviously have the same style even across like the different mediums, which I totally forgotten about. But yeah, I was kind of looking at some of my old photography, and it was like we kind of filled this basement with junk, and for one of my projects, and I was like, that's kind of how I, what my drawings are like now. So yeah, it's quite interesting to look back at that. But yeah, I kind of studied those and just decided that the drawing parts were what I really liked, and kind of moved on with that as I decided to go to university at a bit of an older age. I did have a chunk in the middle where I was a hairdresser. So I was a hairdresser for 10 years, almost 10 years, and just realized that that wasn't for me. But again, it's like, I've always just been doing something that's got like a kind of creative output that's quite tactile. Like I like using my hands. So, yeah, that's kind of how it went.
Yeah, that's it's interesting hearing that because yeah, your art definitely has a lot of detail. That's what I've kind of always liked about it. It really sets a scene, especially for the bedroom series and the Tesla's ones that you have. Those are really nice. I'm always
Thank you.
like staring at those, and then I always find something new that I didn't notice before.
Yeah, which is like honestly what I've really tried to do with my illustration work. I think like I have this maximalist style, obviously, that is, you only have to look at it to see that. But I really enjoy filling the scenes in a way that like you get that repeated viewing pleasure out of it. Each time you go back, you maybe find something new. And I also like to kind of sometimes purposely make things like I'll have certain pieces where characters are like walking off the scene and things are happening just like not quite in view, kind of cropping out stuff that some people would, traditionally, like from a compositional point of view, you would like try and keep in the image. But I quite like this idea of like allowing the viewer to kind of look at the piece and wonder like what's continuing on in that world outside of the image. And it's that kind of like desire to make people want to keep coming back and looking at the work over and over and always find a new thing that really appeals to me. And I guess, I don't know, I suppose like minds are dynamic, aren't they? And I think that like you always want to like be having something that can keep moving. And for me to find, to make something interesting for myself, it has to be like over the top, covered in details and lots to look at. And I think that's maybe my own kind of like ADHD or something, but it's kind of how I like to make work. So even when I've made stuff that's more minimal, I've looked at it and been like, there's too much empty space. Like I need to fill it. And I guess that's kind of how my style has formed itself in a way,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And sometimes it's funny to hear you say like it could be a little bit of your ADHD or kind of your personality seeping into the art itself.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's hilarious because I sometimes I'm kind of like a little bit the same too. Like I have a little bit of shiny object syndrome. And sometimes when pieces or canvases are too minimalist, I struggle to connect with them sometimes. Sometimes it's like I'm able to kind of connect with it pretty quickly based on either colors or what's kind of there if it's abstract. But yeah, for yours, I could stare at it for a long time, I would say, because there's a ton of details in it, which I like. Some people might say it's too busy.
Yeah, sure.
But for me, it's like it's good.
Yeah.
So let's see. You've been in the space now you've been an artist for 10 plus years. Do you do any corporate work, or is it mostly just for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I was working mostly through like commissions, and I've always sold prints as a like a secondary thing, or well, I suppose it was a kind of one of the primary aspects of my income before the crypto scene. But yeah, I've worked on commission based works for clients and companies and stuff before, and that's one of the main reasons why I enjoyed working in the NFT space so much, is because obviously when you're an artist and you have kind of vision for your work, you can often be like held back by how the client wants something to be. And quite often people will approach you and ask you to do something. And then like they approach you because they want your style. But then when it actually comes to the crunch, they sort of like want their style, but done by you. And sometimes that can be a really hard thing to kind of meet in the middle. And then obviously there's the kind of way that it works from a payment perspective, because people generally either don't have a clue how much like a private commission or a business commission would cost. And especially like smaller companies that don't do it as often. And they'd approach me and say like, can you do this piece? And it would be something that would take me like 50 to 90 hours, especially back in those days. Because I do work a lot quicker now, obviously, but back then when I was still kind of getting, you know, getting more professional, I suppose you could say, I would have people say like, can you do this piece? And they would want it like next week, and it would be like 90 hours work. And I'd just be like, you completely lost the plot if you think that that's going to happen. And it's very frustrating because you want to say yes to as many opportunities as you can, but at the same time, like people just don't have a clue about how long things take. Like, and it's not just about pen on paper time either, it's about like when you, especially if I draw something like the piece that you can see on the camera behind me, like that took me a lot of time to draw. And also, um, you're like trying to find all of these objects as well, like it doesn't just immediately all come to my mind. Like I have to kind of allow that percolation of all the different themes and objects to come to me over a bit of time as well. So if you add all of the time spent like researching, I suppose you could say, or like gathering ideas and then pen on paper time, it's like a lot, and people tend to not have the ability to afford that. And some do, and you do get some commissions, obviously, but it's always difficult. And I found a lot of the time, most of the time, it would be like a lot of emailing that ended up going nowhere, and that was half my time. And then obviously we came into the sort of 2021 where the NFT scene obviously went bananas, and the best thing about that for me was being able to just make the work I wanted to make. And then because of that, I can really make the things that are about me and share my stories. And then that tends to be the stuff that other people connected with. And you just don't get that when you're doing like a corporate logo or something that's just with a bit of color in it, or, my whimsical style, but with their kind of idea. And it just never felt like I was making art in the same way that I do now.
Yeah. Do you think Web3 enabled you to be able to turn down a little bit more of the corporate style,
Oh,
or
100,
like some of those corporate works? Yeah.
100%. I really, even now can still in a position where I can cherry pick things a lot more, and
Hmm.
also just be a bit more realistic, I suppose, about like how much things will cost. And yeah, generally, like I actually tend to now, what I've done is like just still only really do client work for clients that I had before that I enjoyed working for. So there's like a few coffee companies, because I'm really into coffee, and there's a few coffee companies that have like repeatedly got me to do bag designs and like some merch and stuff for them over the last kind of 5 years. And I really like doing that because I like the kind of there's a bit of like scratching each other's back in that circumstance as well, because I also like to work for people where I feel like rather than worrying so much about money, I can be like, how about you give me like the coffee for free forever? And like that's, I think that's great. So I have those kind of relationships with a few clients that I still continue working with them. But generally, like unless it's something that's going to like actually changed my life and also is an amazing idea or project or concept or company, like I just probably will not bother unless it's like really either easy or I have like a nice empty bit of space. And to be honest, like I've been so busy the whole time with since crypto, like I still get so many inquiries with regards to like me wanting to, people wanting me to do stuff in that space that I kind of still feel like I'd rather just focus there because I've just generally, apart from a few like ups and downs, like generally I've had a way more enjoyable career since I've been working in the NFT space, both in terms of like talking to people, like, I mean, that's the main thing as well, isn't it? Like I literally love talking to people about my work. And as you know, you were saying like, I really like to make these stories that are about myself and then see how they connect to others. And like that
Mm.
conversation is really enjoyable for me. And you just don't, you don't get that with commercial client work. So, I'd rather have the nice conversations and talk about art with people than I would necessarily, do some big corporate job that paid a load of money, but like was totally soul destroying. So, yeah, it's never really been about money
Yeah.
for me. So it's like, just do the things that make you happy more. I've really realized that over the last couple of years with my own kind of struggles and family stuff that have happened. And like, I just realized that sort of like life's too short. And at the end of the day, I'd rather be making the art that I want to make than the art that other people want me to make.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree with that. And I'm glad that Web3's been, has enabled you to be a little bit more selective of your corporate work and stuff like that.
Sure.
Did you end up, so obviously since the market's been a little bit down for the last, let's say 18 months or 24 months, did you end up going back a little bit more into the corporate world now that NFTs have kind of cooled off, or?
Yeah, I did. So I have done some more stuff that I didn't think I'd be doing again, but like a little bit less like kind of corporate stuff, but like doing more things like markets and um I used to do loads of art fairs and markets and just like sell prints in person because again it's like a really nice
Mhm.
way to interact with people and sell your work as well. And I kind of used to do that quite a lot. And then when the NFT stuff happened, I just stopped doing anything else apart from that. And then during the kind of quieter time, I've been using it as an opportunity to kind of experiment myself and make different stuff, as well as kind of doing some more like physical painting. And I had a really good moment where I had a studio that was quite spacious for a little bit, just about a year, maybe a year ago, a little bit longer. We had like just a big room in this place. We kind of still have a nice-ish room now, but this room is tiny and like I don't have the space for like making a mess in the same way. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really nice moment where I was able to kind of take a bit of a step back from the kind of the really digital stuff and mess around a bit and made some pretty mental stuff and like stuff that I'll never show anyone else, but it's just like therapeutic for me to slap some paint around. And yeah, just like did a lot more fairs and markets again and kind of got out and spoke to people and sold prints that way. Kind of like anything to not have to go back into the sort of commercial work. Basically, like, I would kind of do anything I can in a way to sort of not have to do that. Um, Obviously, if it got to a point where I really was like desperate, I guess I would have to start reaching out to some of that stuff again. But like, I just prefer working the way that I'm working now. And like, I have a pretty, I have a pretty frugal lifestyle. So I'm not like desperately trying to like reach huge riches. So I'm like, as long as I can kind of keep my lights on and make art, like I'm pretty happy with that. And even more so after like some of the things I've learned about myself over the last couple of years. Um, I think like a lot of the time people's priorities can be in the wrong place. And I'm just like happy to still be like able to make art and enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Um, I think before we kind of jump into some of the things you learned in the last couple years since being in the space. I wanted to get into just a couple things about your art. How would you define your art, and kind of what's the, you were talking about kind of like spreading out in the previous workspace.
Yeah.
What are your like sources of inspiration? Do you find yourself having like a ton of books everywhere, like out to get kind of inspired, or a bunch of knickknacks, or kind of what is your style, and kind of what is that process of getting inspiration?
Sure. Um, so it's kind of it's a difficult one really to answer in a way. Like I obviously have this, so kind of say it's like a maximalist. Um, I guess it's like world building. It's quite a classic illustration style in a way. Like I have like black line work that surrounds every image, and then I fill those lines with color. So it's kind of like this. It used to be very pen on paper, and now I have the same kind of techniques, but I use an iPad. So where I was kind of scanning in a page that I would have drawn like an inked page, scanned in, put into Photoshop, take the background out, color digitally. I can now do that all in one go on an iPad. So it's like really all that. My style's kind of never changed in a way. I've gotten better at drawing, but like the way that I've drawn has always been the same. Um, and yeah, I just like to draw these kind of like crazy scenes, world building scene, full of details and characters, and like uh, as much kind of humor as I can, as well as kind of like underlying concepts around various different subject matters. Um, and with regards to inspiration, like it kind of, it's like anything, isn't it? It comes from everywhere, really. I look at art. I go out and look at, I go on a lot of walks, and one of the things that really used to inspire me would be kind of like object like documentation that I used to do, and I don't do it so much anymore. And I kind of was thinking the other day when I was having a call with the guys at the Tickle, and I was talking about like how I used to do that, and I'd like to do it again more. And I think it's also actually this kind of approach that maybe sort of created my style as well, which I think is really cool and interesting. And um, I've got quite a unique illustration style, I suppose. Like people can always recognize that it's me when they see my pieces, and I always get asked like, how do you find your style? And like, how do you develop your own style? And I think for me, one of the things that I used to do is I would go and like document objects in kind of charity shops and antique shops and thrift stores and stuff like that. And sometimes I would like sketch things directly. I used to go to the museum. We have quite a cool museum in our town as well. And I used to sometimes go to the museum and like draw all the objects in the displays. And I had this kind of approach of like, if I could think of something interesting to draw, I would try and draw it just without looking at the thing. So anything that I thought of, I would just be like, right, I'm not going to look the thing up. I'm just going to try drawing it first. And I would draw it. And quite often it would be like, it would look wild. But like, especially if it's something I've never drawn before. And like, it's weird how like sometimes in your memory, you think you can see something and you start to draw it and it just doesn't come out right at all. And, I used to kind of like, so I would think of the thing, draw it. Then I would go back and I would look at the thing for real and like, use a reference photo or go and look at this thing in real life. And I would draw it from that, from actually having the image in front of me. And then you have the two next to each other and it's like, right, okay, you got this first one that looks insane. The second one that looks kind of quite a lot like the thing. And then I would try to revisit a couple of days later or even like the next day and draw the thing again without the visual, the reference material. And then that one is always the one that would be like really cool because it's kind of a bit of me, but also like the memory of the thing that I'd drawn from reference was still there. And then I think like that's really how my style developed. Because I used to do this a lot. And I used to kind of keep sketchbooks of loads of objects in. And I had a few books with, I had a book, I think it was called like 1001 Crazy Objects or something like that. And it's like just allowing all this stuff to kind of bleed into my psyche kind of allowed me to then build scenes with like crazy amounts of stuff in them. And, yeah, that's kind of how it happened, I think. And like, yeah, how my sort of style developed from that. Because I've never really liked to use reference too much. I do use it for stuff that I like really don't know what the thing looks like, or, if I need a bit of a helping hand with some stuff. But like, I've tried to allow so much stuff just come from my imagination. And then that's how my style is me. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that because of that, and because of not really necessarily looking too much at other stuff or other artists' work, or trying to follow like trends that come. I mean, it used to happen a lot with before crypto and NFTs, like with Instagram, you'd see so many people that would like, you get an artist on Instagram that's like blowing up, and then suddenly you'd get all of these people like imitating that artist and blowing up as well. And it's kind of really easy to want to just be like, well, I'll draw like them as well. But that was never really what I wanted to do. And then I purposely made it my way to not look at other stuff when I was drawing my things. And then the things that I drew really felt like they came from me rather than like sort of replicating other people's work. And I guess that is how I developed a style that is then kind of uniquely me.
No, I love to hear that, man, because as a couple things that stood out to me was um I feel like sometimes what I kind of heard from what you were saying is that sometimes using the reference material is sort of like limits your creativity. Like you feel like you have to draw it close
Yeah.
to the real thing, and kind of doing it off the top of your head kind of lets you break some of those rules or boundaries of the reference image and put it more in your style. And the fact that you were able to, um, you know, draw your version, draw the reference, the one that's closer to the reference, take a break, whatever that break may be. Sometimes it could be like, like you said, a day or even longer, and then come back to it. And then that's the version that you feel, that resonates with me, because that's kind of how writing and photography and like that feel like that to me too. Like
Sure.
sometimes it's rare for me to get things right the first time.
Yeah.
It's like practice. And so that stood out to me. And then the other thing that stood out to me was kind of like the Instagram influence. Photography is the same way. So I noticed that too. Like people would start taking, pictures during golden hour, blue hour. And then like the meta was like, everybody's now taking pictures of something during golden hour, or like traffic during golden hour, or
Yeah.
the boats during golden hour. And then, and that becomes the thing, everybody gets popular on Instagram, and you're like, well, I could do that. And it's very easy,
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
be
for
like,
sure. But then at the same
yeah,
time, you become like, and there's no denying, like we become like slaves to these algorithms because of the fact that they decide that like similar stuff will rise. And I think that there's like, it's all so like designed, social media is so designed to like hit us, get our like dopamine response and all that. And like, it's totally fucked to be honest, but like, it's just, you've got to fight back against that if you want to make art that's truly yours. And
yeah,
just because, if you make art that's truly yours and people don't like it, it doesn't matter. Like, better to be honest and truthful to yourself and make art that's really you than it is to make art that's somebody else and then get popular because you're copying someone else's ideas or style. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that to develop their own style if that's how it works for them, but I've been really fortunate that like my imagination is just like, it's disgusting in some ways because like my imagination is so over the top and so crazy and has been since I was a kid that actually that has been something like one of the factors that's probably dragged me down a lot in my life as well. Like overthinking things and worrying about things that weren't real because of that, that door being open. But at the same time, that door is what allows me to kind of have these crazy ideas for like scenes and crazy amounts of ideas for each scene as well. I remember at uni, my teacher was like, you've put more items and sort of objects and interest into this one drawing than I've seen like some students put into like their entire year. And I was just like, they were like, how do you come up with this? And I was like, it just happens for me. And like, I'm so grateful for that because it's obviously allowed me to make art that's kind of, again, like it's my art. But at the same time, that bit of my brain is open, and also from there comes some other stuff that's like a bit dark. And if that kind of overwhelms me, then that's problematic in itself, you know? But,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I think I wanted to talk about that a little bit now, if it's okay with you. But one of the questions I had was kind of like, Tezos 2021 was kind of like, it was a vibe. Let's just say that,
yeah, 100%.
with Hen, yeah, and that's how I actually discovered you. I don't know if you knew that, but like when I first got into NFTs, I was in the East space for like, I don't even know, probably like 2 weeks, and then gas was just like horrendous. Like
Yeah.
I think I minted something and it cost like $500 plus in just gas fees, and I was like, this is not.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in this thing. Like, this is ridiculous. I don't care how popular they are. And then I found Tezos, and so literally the two first artists in the Tezos space that I would say noticed and recognized, and I liked the style, was Lucrece, and yours. So like, I think you were in the middle of your bedroom series, or um, you were very popular, at least in my neck of the woods that I was in Tezos. Your art was very popular. So I know you had a lot of success in Tezos. And then you did the Tez Arts, or the Fuckers, which got really popular as well too. Like I think those were, Tezos was like what, $5 or something crazy, and those are going for like 200, 300, 400 Tezos. How was that for you mentally, like having that level of success? And then I think you said that like in the last couple years it's been a little bit rough for you. Like, what exactly transpired, or yeah.
Basically, I think what happened, there's so many kind of like little things that were happening, and it was kind of it's growing, and you kind of keep pushing it down and trying to pretend that it's all going to be okay. But like the first thing is that I think that like it's not normal, and I think this is kind of probably exclusive to the NFT scene, but it's not normal to go from somebody who's kind of like, I check Twitter kind of every day or whatever for however long I've been on there, many years before I was involved in NFTs. And I'd post my art, and like, again, I'd get a couple of likes and a few people say, this is cool. Haven't seen something like this before. Do you do this? Do you do that? Whatever, pretty minimal stuff. And then like started minting NFTs. And then kind of 2 weeks after that fast, like my followers on Twitter were just going insane. And it became kind of all consuming. And at the same time, everybody's kind of, as you're an artist in this kind of what feels like a digital renaissance, and like you're part of this kind of underground punk scene, which is awesome, and everybody's really cool and you're having an amazing time. But at the same time, you're like so deeply integrated in that wave as well that you're kind of forgetting that like, well, real life exists, and like so many things. And I'm sure it's the same. I'm saying sure it's the same. Like I know it's the same because I've spoken now to so many people that were involved in that bit. Like I'm still friends, and recently had quite a deep heart to heart with Pixelful, who I met in Miami in 2021, just before I had like basically a mental breakdown. And when we were there together, he was having a really hard time as well, but like didn't realize, I don't think either. And when we just went to Paris, we were both in Paris, and like it was the first time I'd seen him again in person since. And we kind of had this heart to heart, and it was like, man, we were like fucked, and we should have spoken to each other about it at the time, because I think so many artists were also going through this, and it wasn't natural to be honest, like, I don't think it's natural to go from like an actual nobody to kind of like suddenly everyone's interested in you effectively overnight. And obviously, like, there's the financial aspect of it as well. You feel like obliged to so many people. And also you get at that time, there were people you try and do everything you can as somebody that like doesn't know how to code or like know really anything beyond kind of minting the art on hen. And you try and do everything you can to try and keep as many people happy as possible. And like, no matter what you did, you couldn't keep everybody happy. And like, people were sending horrible messages and abuse because they'd missed out on a mint. Like, and it's just like, I think people forgot like that there were kind of just humans behind that were like suffering quite badly. And then on top of that, like, there's a lot of like financial stuff as well that nobody really knew. And like, I couldn't get an accountant in the UK. I couldn't get a bank account. And like, people like make like, you'd have people on Twitter going like, why do you need a bank account? It's crypto. And it's like, because unfortunately I'm not a non, like I have a massive tax bill and like, I don't want to go to jail because of like all of this shit messing up. And I also was somebody who had no money before, like absolutely no money. So like I'm watching the Tezos, for example, like crash in value, and I'd held so much of it. And I'm looking at this tax bill that I actually can't afford because the value of the coin has gone down so much. And like that in itself is like a humongous stress on somebody. Like, financial worries are always a huge burden on anyone anyway. So if this kind of this was happening underneath, and then on top you've got like everybody coming at you with like every possible thing, and so many people that came and like interacted with me for the first time after Tezards that just like had totally missed this whole concept of like what I was trying to do and what I believe in and what my morals are. And like the whole point of what Tezards was supposed to be, which was like literally the antithesis of like PFPs, and like trying to build something that really actually looked good on the chain that was kind of actually punk. And like that was totally missed by so many people because they came in after, and then they're coming at me with like, when you're going to make sunglasses? And I'm like, I literally can't imagine anything worse than making stuff that's going to end up in a landfill so that you can like have some junk that you don't really want. And my entire brain was just getting completely turning into scrambled egg. And it just, I just started waking up like having real, physical anxiety where I was like shaking, having panic attacks, like, and then like I started having like, really thoughts that you don't want to be having. And at that point I was like, damn, was this really worth it? And just after speaking to my kind of, in real life friends and family and doctor, they were like, you need to take a step back from this thing for a bit to kind of, get back to baseline. And that's basically what I had to do. And the truth is that I think that if more artists had spoken about how they felt at the time, a lot of us probably could have helped each other out. But I think that there's a real problem with discussing your struggles online. It's just, it's scary to be vulnerable online, and everyone's so cynical as well that like it's hard to necessarily, you try and put out some honesty, and sometimes it still feels like people just think you're bullshitting. And then you just get to a point where you're like, you know what, like this isn't worth my life, so I'm gonna just take a step back for a bit. And that's basically pretty much what happened to me, and like I say, it really happened to quite a few people. I think it maybe happened to me a bit worse because of the fact that I had tried to like make a art focused PFP that was supposed to be like, it was really supposed to be this kind of like humorous, like kind of, it was supposed to be poking fun at the whole concept. And while I think a lot of people that did get that, the problem is always the few people that don't. And it's always those few negative comments and negative interactions that stick with you, isn't it, in life? And it's a shame that we're built that way, but like you could have like a million people say that you're the best thing ever. And then you have one person tell you that you suck. And it's that one suck that you can't sleep at night because of, and it's just stupid human brains, like really stupid human brains. But it's just the way it is for me anyway. Maybe not everyone's like that, but I am a sort of sensitive artist, and I'm not a bullshitter either. So I just kind of like the stuff I put out is true and real. And because of that, it can be quite hurtful if people don't get it or are abusive towards it. And there was like a moment of that happening because of the sheer like volume of people that were desperate to get a bedroom and desperate to get a tethered, and just, and at the end of the day, you have to remember that like once I put the art out there, it's completely out of my control as well. So like, if you buy something on secondary for an amount of money, like that's the person you bought it off of, like speak to them about it if you're not happy.
Yeah.
Like I can't control anything after that. So yeah. And I think I just had to take a step back and like remember like what's real, because I think as well, like I was in this point where my mental health was also just like making everything seem on social media way worse. Because because I was in this really dark place anyway. It was amplifying everything. And like my wife was like looking at stuff and saying like, I think you're like literally reading some of this stuff in the wrong way. Like I'm not reading this the same way as you are. And that's when I realized that like I was really ill. And yeah, it was like, right, time to go and get this sorted. And that became my priority, like I just wanted to be better, and like staying better is the only thing I really care about now. So that's why I'm much more chill with my minting, and like try and be like calmer on social media, and just take a step back, take everything on social media with a massive pinch of salt now as well, because I've realized that so much stuff is just like engagement farming anyway. And you just got to like not take the bait, and just remember that everyone has their own kind of narrative that they're trying to make. And if it doesn't align with yours, you don't have to argue about it or like send each other death threats or just be an asshole. Like you can just be like, okay, that's fine. You can think that, I'll think this, but like continue living your life, and that's fine. So yeah, that's kind of what happened.
No, thank you for opening up and being vulnerable on that. And I think you're right. I think it messes with a lot of people. For sure. I mean, I know that you've been on Instagram posting consistently. I've seen some of your work on there as I was doing the research for this. So you've been at it for a while, and you blew up like crazy. And yeah, it can mess with you. And it's funny that you say like, like you could have 1,000 positives, but if one negative, like that's the one that sticks with you. I don't think that's, I wouldn't feel too guilty about that. There's professional athletes, there's politicians, there's people that, they're at the top of their game, and they're the same way,
Yeah,
they'll have 1,000 likes, and the one negative is the one they stick with. And the brain's just, like you said, the monkey brain. It's just wired like that way for some reason. But yeah, and it's interesting to me that it's so funny because the not being able to please everyone, like it's so funny as a collector as well in the space that like you could do all the right things and people could still be unhappy, so the artist and community that I'm kind of the most familiar with is Lucrece. And, I see he's very methodical and thoughtful, and I'm not saying you're not either, but, he could put so much thought into something and people are just not happy. He'll make one decision where like half the people are like, yep, this is a solid decision. And the other half are like, this is an awful decision, so and people get it. People take it very personal. I think we're all like in our own little hero personality kind of world where we think they're coming after the decision is directly pointed at you. And it's like, dude, the world does not revolve around you
Yeah,
specifically as a person,
totally.
you know. It's
And that fully goes for everyone. Like, I think like you you kind of feel like when you're in a really bad space as well, it's really easy to feel like everybody's looking at you under a microscope, but then you actually kind of take a step back and remember that like actually no one really gives two shits about you specifically. Like they come and go into your life, especially on social media. Like, you know, people that I haven't spoken to for 2 years will pop up and be like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were back minting on Tezos." And it's like, yeah, and that's like somebody that I thought was like fully just like following my every move online, you know. And it's like you kind of it's easy to lose yourself in these kind of worries. It's also just difficult because at the end of the day, like we've kind of like we're building this thing that's like the future of art in my personal feelings. But unfortunately, and fortunately in some ways as well, like it's a blessing and a curse. But at the end of the day, it's hyper financialized. And because of that, like it's always going to bring out people's worst side. And that, like, you know, people say and do stuff to other people that like just isn't that's really cruel because of money, you know. And like even, you know, you'll see it even like people's own families will fall out and become cruel to each other because of money. So like of course internet strangers are going to fall out if like even if you love an artist, like if they make one bad move or one bad decision in your opinion, like if there's like a financial aspect to it, then like they end up being way over the top. And I just feel like in some ways that wouldn't happen if things were a little bit less financialized. But then at the same time, the financialization of everything is kind of like what's brought so many people in, and so many people are now enjoying art in a way that they maybe didn't realize was even possible for them because of originally being like, okay, I want to get into this because I'm going to get rich. But there are some people that are genuinely now still involved that actually realize that they absolutely love art and didn't really realize that before. They love talking about it. They love looking at it. They love finding new stuff, finding new artists and talking to new artists and new people. And at first they thought they were just going to like, you know, buy a Bored Ape and make 1 million. And that was the end of it. So,
yeah.
you know, there's blessings and curses in every walk of life, but it's just a shame that a lot of the fallouts and struggles and pressure on artists is because of the financialization of it all. And I don't think there's ever going to be like, there's never going to be a way around that really. Like, I mean, maybe as the market matures and everything becomes, you know, I do see this potential future, especially now there's like Bitcoin ETFs and all that. I feel like it's quite possible that over the next like 10, maybe longer years, that everything will just kind of calm down to a much more like normal market. And then it won't be like you're buying a piece of art with the intention of like trying to flip it for 10x or 100x like a week down the line. You're buying it for the price it is because you like it, and that's kind of where it will stay. Kind of like buying a print now, you know, like people buy my prints all the time. They don't buy it and then go like, oh, I bought this OMG I Drawed It print for 25 quid. And like the next day I sold it for 100 quid or dollars, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just not in people's minds at all, like even slightly. And I kind of think it would be nice if the whole space got to a point where it was like in between, you know, because I get the concept of flipping and I get the concept of like collecting with the intent of selling later. In every instance, I get that. And like my personal collection strategy is that I just buy the stuff I really like. And I've never sold anything that I've bought in the entire 2 years that I've, you know, three plus years is it now? Like I can't even remember what the date is now.
Yeah,
I've been,
you're
you
approaching
know,
3 now.
but I've been collecting, you know, I've been collecting art on, I've collected art on a lot, mostly on Tezos, obviously, and I've collected a few pieces on ETH, and I've collected on Base and Zora and Solana now as well. And I've never even contemplated relisting the piece for sale because I just buy stuff that I want to own myself. And like, I'm never going to not like something that I bought. That's one of the other things that I think is really difficult, right? This is a thing that happened to me when I was younger about music, and I think music is a really good one. So I I like every song that I liked when I first heard it, if I liked it still now. Does that make sense? So I've never heard a song, liked the song that I listened to, and then like gone back and realized that actually I don't like it. I just like the things I like, and I've always liked the things I like. And I had a friend in school. So one of my favorite bands when I was a kid was Jimmy Eat World. You know Jimmy Eat World? They're like a pop punk
Yeah.
band. I love Jimmy Eat World. And my friend that showed me Jimmy Eat World when I was high school, I saw him. I actually hadn't seen him for a while, but I invited him to my wedding. And at my wedding, we were talking about music because he's really into music. And I was like, do you remember when you showed me Jimmy Eat World? And he was like, oh yeah, Jimmy Eat World, man, they suck. Like, I hate them now. And I was like, how can you hate something you like? Like, I don't get it. I get like not enjoying it maybe as much, but I don't get ever going back to something that you liked once and not liking it anymore. Like that doesn't compute for me. If it does for other people, that's totally fine. But just for me, like it doesn't compute. So if I bought something that I wanted at the time, I'll look at it a few years later and maybe it's not like blowing my mind like it did the first time that I saw it, but I'll still like it. I'll never unlike
Yeah.
it. I don't unlike stuff. And I feel like I worry that, again, because of the financialization of crypto, that because people chase narratives and like, you know, we see this huge push. So I think at the start of Tesla is a really good example because everybody was collecting stuff. And I think at the time, so many people they didn't really have like, they hadn't been like told what to look for. People were just collecting the stuff they really liked. And the stuff they really liked then isn't the same as the stuff that people really like now, which I think is really interesting. And I'm like, are you still collecting stuff you really like? Or are you still collecting the stuff that follows the financialization narrative? I feel like so many people that collected my work now, like back then, now wouldn't even kind of contemplate it because it's not generative art, for example. And I'm like, it's just really interesting as an artist to step back and kind of look at that, you know? I think if you
Yeah.
bought something because you liked it, honor that, you know, like it's cool. You can like cartoony illustrations and you can like crazy concept art and you can like generative art and you can like PFPs. It's all fine. Just like the stuff you like, buy the stuff you like. You'll be happy then, you know? I like all those things. I buy all those things and I'm happy with all the things I've collected.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually, for me, when I got into the space, it was like, um, it was a little bit of both. You know, I think on ETH, I was trying to buy things that I could flip. And then on Teslas, it was more literally I could just buy things that I like because the price was good. The gas was good.
Yeah, cool.
I didn't have that financial pressure for it to be like, you know, that's not to say that there aren't, you know, really expensive Tesla pieces.
Cool.
But, you know, it was just a completely different mindset for me.
Yeah. I think
And
sorry, I was
yeah,
to say, I think
so
it's like
yeah,
it's a nicer mindset in a way, right? Because I think it's so much purer to collect from that way. Like if
yeah,
you're having to worry so much about like a million different factors for you to decide that you like something, and so many of those factors relate to money, then like how much do you really like the thing? You know?
hmm yeah, no, agreed. And I've ended up having a lot more fun and success buying things that I like early. So I'll find an artist I like early, and you know, there's no signal of like, you know, some famous person bought it for $1 million. It's like I bought it for $200 or whatever, $100, and
Yeah.
I don't think about it at all. I just talk to them, and then you know, it just happens to be like a year or two later, other people end up discovering them and liking them as well, and then the financial reward at that stage, it makes sense. You know, I'll have a piece for 100, I'll sell it for like 1,000. It just also happens to be I've accumulated enough of this artist that I'm like, I don't need, you know, necessarily
Every
20
piece.
pieces.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't need every single
Yeah.
piece, you know?
Yeah.
So and that's worked out a lot better for me than actually chasing, you know, the next monkey PFP or anything of that nature, you know?
Sure. Also, like at the end of the day, like from my perspective, like I intend to continue making art for as long as my hands will still work. And like if you want to like sell a piece of mine that you've collected so that you can buy another piece that maybe you like better because you still really like my work, but you want to like get more pieces. Like, yeah, I fully get all of the kind of concepts behind it. Like, I think it's an incredible space because of all of the things that come with it. But, you know, I don't want people to feel like they have to keep a piece if they want to get a new piece and the old piece is going to allow them to get something new, you know? Of course,
Yeah.
like I'd feel differently as well. Maybe if I was like, that's it, guys, I'm never making another piece of art. So what I've put out, like, if you want my work, like, that's all you're going to ever get. Cause like, I'm an artist and I make art and I make it every day. So it may be as well that like, as times change and concepts change within my work and the themes change and I change as a person, like my most amazing piece that I ever make might be, you know, the producer, but it also might be in like 5 years time. So
Hmm.
it's creativity. Like there's no way of knowing like when you're going to have that spark of genius. I feel like, you know, sometimes I think like, did I already have my like my my number one selling hit with the bedroom series? You know, am I ever gonna make an artwork that connects with people more than those? But like that, you know, that's something that I sometimes do worry about. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to stop making art either way. So what difference does it make? Like, I'll just keep making and hopefully people keep enjoying. And if they also keep buying, then that's amazing. But it's just for me, it's like, I just want to create. So I'll be creating regardless of the market cycles and regardless of the financialization. I really feel like for some reason I can't say financialization today. I keep like twisting my tongue and like it's making me really listy.
No, no worries. You're towards the end of your day, so and it's Friday, so
Yeah, it's been a long week actually.
exactly. Let's see. I can now see why you're happy that most of my questions, or only one of my questions, was regarding the Tezards. Yeah, people are nuts, man. Let's see. So I know you recently had a piece shown out in Paris, and I think you were in Paris. Yeah, you were in Paris. You got sick. Yeah, just talk to me about kind of like uh, how did that come about, and
So
is it still very like does it still feel really cool to have your work still shown like at an event or something like that? Like, is that still enchanting to you?
yeah, it probably would be if I didn't have I didn't have a piece in Paris actually.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, yeah, I
No.
think you were mentioning that. My bad.
So I think that like maybe through because obviously like Warpcaster was blowing up a bit over that bit of time
Hmm.
as well. Um, I think maybe I might have had a piece on display at the like Warpcaster meetup, but the girl that runs the art channel messaged me and said you should put a piece forwards for this. So I don't know if that means that she picked the piece that I put forwards and it did get shown, but I don't think they told anybody. So I may well have had a piece up at at, I don't know if it was at Iheim or Bright Moments Cafe where they were like hosting the event, but I may have had a piece up there a couple of days before I got there. But yeah, unfortunately didn't have anything actually on display myself. I just, because of being in the UK and Paris being reasonably close, I decided that it would be pretty cool to go to. And then it was one of those classic things where suddenly like loads of people that I'd wanted to meet for a long time said they were going. So I was like, I'm just going to bite the bullet and go. But yeah, it was a really cool, it was a really cool event. I mean, Paris is, I don't know if you've ever been to Paris, but it's a really amazing city. Um, and it was, yeah, I mean, it poured with rain the whole time and everybody got COVID, but like the art was really cool. There was some really cool talks. Bright Moments was awesome. There was like a lot of really cool art there as well. And yeah, I mean, there's some always, it's always worth going to events in real life. I think like you get to meet people and make better connections. And like, I kind of spoke to, I kind of already was speaking to John Karp, who's the guy that has the NFT Factory Paris, but I got to go and see that in real life, which was really cool, and like and have a real life meeting with him, and that's leading on to me having some stuff in Lisbon, and like yeah, so hopefully, I'm really hoping that that the Lisbon stuff goes through, because they want to have my work like on some really big screens, and
Mm.
that's amazing. So like when they told me that, I was like, that got me buzzing, because I was like, fine, if you make something that's like really, really detailed and it's only ever really seen on a laptop screen or at best a phone, um, it's uh, it's pretty cool when someone says they're up for like putting it on a wall that's like 10 or 20 feet squared, So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's
But
huge, man.
it's
Yeah.
still a little bit up in the air. So I don't want to I just find that like I'm still like I've had so many letdowns in my career from like previous to NFTs, that I still find like until my work is actually on the wall, like, and I see it on the wall, I'll just assume it's not actually happening. And that's kind of how I kind of live my life now. Just like not getting too excited about anything, because you just never know what's gonna like what might happen. So I've had so many times where I'd like got a really good opportunity with a job pre NFTs, did like 6 weeks of emails, and then they were like, "Oh, actually, we aren't going to do the project anymore." And I'm just like, so
Yeah, it's frustrating.
it's made me super cynical when it comes to like being excited about stuff before it actually happens. So like, yes, I'm be absolutely buzzing if my stuff is up. I mean, I've got a piece up at NFT NYC, which is why I'm going there as well. Um, but I don't know how that's being displayed exactly, but like, it's a good opportunity to go there. And I really love New York. I haven't been for a long time. Went when I was 21. So I'm really excited to go back to New York. And I'm sure there's loads of really cool art events on in the fringe. I think like that's the thing as well. Like the main events at these things tend to be so, but then like there'll be loads of stuff around at other like companies and NFT, like marketplaces and artists and stuff are putting on, that usually tend to be really cool and generally free entry as well. So I'm excited for all that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's what was good about Paris as well. Like we didn't have tickets for the main event, but we just turned up and there was so much stuff that you could go to, so many galleries, and then like at the same time, nice wine, croissants, like it's all good.
Yeah, man. I gotta make it out to Paris one day. I'm going to New York, but the same like you, everyone's like, don't buy the ticket to the actual event, just go be there, and then you'll find like
Yeah.
satellite events and go
Yeah.
to that, and just go to those,
Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah.
uh
Live and learn that lesson, I think, for sure. After, the main NFT Paris, like, obviously it's an expo. It's not. So if you're an artist, you're like, I kind of expect it to be way more about art, but actually it's about crypto and NFTs as a whole. So there's loads of stuff there that's kind of like not really interesting to me at all. So I was a bit like, oh, this is not what I expected. But when you think about it, like it's about the entire crypto market rather than specifically about art. And because of that, you don't see just art when you go to the expo. Makes
yeah.
sense really. But I was a bit like, oh man, if I paid like $500 or whatever it was for a ticket for this, I'd be pretty pissed off. But then like, um, all of the stuff around was amazing and free entry. So like, I guess maybe if you had bought a ticket, you would be like, well, this wasn't great, but at least all this stuff is. So we fortunately got a couple of free tickets right at the last minute. Otherwise, I wouldn't have probably gone to the main NFT Paris show. But yeah, and there was some amazing art in there still. But it's just like for some reason in my head, thought it was going to be like a full on. I guess it's because I was at uh Art Basel. I never know whether it's
Hmm.
Basel or Basel.
I
Um,
think people say Basel, but yeah.
Basel, yeah, Basel. I think it's because of being from the UK, I say Basil is like the herb,
Hmm.
Basil. So yeah, anyway, so Art Basel was obviously really art centric. So I just assumed that everything was going to be like that. Um, but then I remembered that actually it's more like, so when I was a hairdresser, we used to go to hairdressing expos, and that's the same kind of concept, like just a huge like warehouse full of everything to do with hairdressing, which a lot of the stuff is of no interest. So um, it's the same kind of concept, really. Sorry, I feel like
Yeah.
I've kind of waffled a bit about that for kind of no reason there, to be honest. But yeah,
No, 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 you're
basically,
good. You're good.
when you check out all the fringe events at these things, they're what's worth going to, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I'm gonna end up going to. I mean, I personally like I've been in the space now for a long time, like crypto as a whole. So,
Yeah, sure.
and I really enjoy the technology. So for me, it's like it could be art, just pure art, or just pure tech, and either or, I'm happy because I like
Yeah.
geeking out on both things. So it's good for me either way, regardless of what the event ends. All right, so I have two more quick ones, hopefully. Then I have to hop off. So I think I saw in Warpcast you were talking about doing. You're kind of working on some new merch or some physical stuff. So like the current meta right now is kind of like, at least what I've seen is a lot of artists are doing, either books, so like NFT art books, or they're doing, high quality prints, or they're doing like, just crazy physical plus NFT things. So I kind of wanted to get your what exactly are you working on that physical side right now? And if you've thought about maybe doing something, you know, uh, super crazy, like in terms of physical plus NFT, like if you buy this NFT, then you get the physical or anything of that nature.
Yeah. So I mean, so basically, I had like a physical web shop for a long time, and like it became quite challenging to like keep it going when I had so much other stuff on as well. And because of the fact that like everything was going really well in crypto, like I didn't really need to push the shop anymore, so we kind of closed it down. I still have like loads of prints, and then obviously, like I said, we started doing markets again, and then I was like, we need to kind of have like I think it's good to have a shop because I think if there's one thing that the kind of long bear market has taught me is that you do need to have kind of other income
Yeah.
streams. So, um, the idea is to to relaunch the physical shop and kind of have like an underlying kind of hopefully constant stream of income from that. Because my stuff does sell really well in the shops that it's at. Like I stock in a few shops in the UK and it's always sold really well. But the hard thing is like getting eyes on a web store. So we're just kind of trying to work on that at the moment. But like I just wanted to do a few things that I hadn't done before. Because I've just mostly done print. Um, so we were just kind of looking at like a few options and like, yeah, I've just designed like a little temporary tattoo sheet, which is pretty cool. We found this like, it's also difficult as well because they're trying to like as much as possible keep any of the physical merch or physical print on the kind of environmentally conscious side. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
good inks and recycled paper or card and recycle like Stanley Stella t-shirts, which are like an organic and a better cotton. And it's quite difficult, like trying to find all that stuff and find things that are quirky on that stuff as well. So I was really pleased to find these tattoo sheets because they're like soybean ink and on recycled paper and stuff. And I was like, wow, I can't believe it. So I made this little temporary tattoo sheet, which is really cool. And we're making some zines and notebooks and stuff. And like, yeah, with regards to your question, like I've not really tried to tie it together especially, but like I do want to. In fact, my current series that I'm working on and releasing at the moment, um, the recipes for disaster, like obviously the individual pieces do kind of look like comic book pages, I guess, in a way. And that was a decision that was on purpose because I wanted to make a kind of comic book zine out of the work at the end. And I have kind of got this plan to, for people that collect like from 1 through to 5, will get a trophy, and that trophy will allow them to request the physical copy when I release it. Um, but the thing is, I like doing that sort of stuff, but I don't like, I don't like to say that I'm doing it in a way because I don't want the like, I kind of don't want the underlying value to be that you get something for free. I want the people to like it enough to want to collect the artwork. And then a bonus is that they get the zine when I get it made.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I've not really like massively amped that or like spoken about it a huge amount. I've told a few of my long-term collectors that that's what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, there'll be a physical, the plan is to make a physical, comic book kind of zine with the 10 pieces once they're all out. And I hope that I'll be able to have enough or afford some extra pages to put in some like sketches and stuff as well. Um, and that is actually, as much as anything, it's for me. I think I posted about that series today, like what the series is about. Quite a long, quite a long and kind of heartfelt post about it that I think kind of explains the series a bit more for people. And part of the reason why I wanted to make the physical is because I also wanted to be able to have it to give to my two nephews when they're a bit older. And also for me to kind of have, a bit of closure from the kind of circumstances that, that made me create that series. Um, so it was always for me going to be like a physical item that I wanted to make at the end. And obviously the benefit of selling the pieces as NFTs is that I can then offer that to collectors as well if they're interested. Um, so that's kind of one that I'm literally doing at the moment, but I don't know if it's going to be like, I'm not going to like connect it via trace or any kind of stuff like that because I just I don't have the capacity to do those kind of things at the moment. But I'd love to at some point create like I mean, my absolute dream is to make like a hardback coffee table book of bedroom nostalgia that has the entire series. Um, Including because I still plan on finishing bedroom nostalgia. I've got like an ending for it, right? But it's just like become like a difficult thing to finish because like, I don't know, when Hen went down, things changed a lot as well. And I kind of like, I still want to mint the rest of them through that smart contract on, which is now Tia. And it's just like, I don't know, it's all a bit confusing. And I've got so much other stuff on at the moment that I'm kind of letting it sit behind. But the intention is in the fullness of time to complete bedroom nostalgia and then get a bunch of my favorite, tribute pieces because obviously so many people made such amazing versions of
Mm-hmm.
bedroom nostalgia as well and put them in there. I've got quite a lot of bedroom nostalgias that are like that only made it to like a rough stage. I also had some like other conceptual ideas for bedroom nostalgia that I wanted to pursue that I still might mint maybe, but probably would just put in the book. So like I've got this idea for this amazing bedroom nostalgia art book that's like a coffee table book that I will eventually, hopefully, assuming that like the world continues going forwards, make. And then hopefully that will be something that I can do in that way. But again, it's like, it's difficult because obviously the original stuff is all minted on tier. I don't think that there's necessarily like a way of building it into the contract that I can put out like a linked book. But I mean, that doesn't matter so much. I think like it's its own thing enough for people to know that
Yeah.
if they wanted bedroom nostalgia book, they could get it. And I would also want it to be an art book that people that aren't into NFTs could get because
Yes.
it's a nice enough book. And then maybe that would also bring them in and they would look at NFTs and Tezos in a different light as well. So yeah, that's something I'd really love to do. And I really, really hope that I can achieve. It's just like, you look into this stuff and try and find it and do it in a nice way. Stuff's like, it's just so expensive. And then I could do it in like a kind of crowdfunder concept, I guess, like where gather the funds first. But the way that the reach is now through the internet is through X, excuse me, is so bad that it's like really easy to think that something's a flop when actually it's just that like nobody gets to see your posts anymore. So
Yeah.
I would worry that I couldn't fund it and then it would look like it was a flop. And it's just, it's the usual kind of artist worries going through my head with stuff like that. But the truth is that I could probably afford to get like 100 or maybe at a push 500 really nice books made anyway. And then if any collectors wanted to get one, they could get one, and then I could sell them as well to normies, and that would be cool, you know, like that would be such a nice thing for me to have been able to make from the entire process. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, I hope you do it, honestly, man. I
yeah,
think that'd be dope. I think coffee books, like high quality coffee books, are underrated.
yeah,
And I
totally,
think yours is like, your art is like prime for it, I would say.
yeah,
And it has a theme. So, yeah, there's a couple ways you could crowdfund it. You know, you could use Fabric. They have like crowd financing.
sure,
So it's like all on chain based. But yeah, I know what you mean with like X. It's like, dude, I don't even know. Sometimes like I'll post something like, I watched Aquaman, 3 stars out of 5, like something hella dumb,
yeah,
and that will get more views and engagement than like, you know, me actually, like I'll do like an interview with an artist or something, and that will get like nothing, you know. And
yeah,
I'm like, why did my post on nothing
yeah.
do so much better than the post on, you know,
There's really
this?
like no rhyme or reason to it anymore. I mean, that's why I'm kind of like really bullish and sort of really interested in Warpcaster, because I just feel like I feel like it's at the moment, at least, a way better place to be having conversation, because there's people actually there responding. And I don't know if that's because everyone's kind of hyped because it's new, or whether it's just because the algorithms on X really have gone so downhill that like you just can't post anymore. And I think especially if you're posting anything that's like got the slightest undercurrent of crypto involved, it's just getting like totally minimized. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a really difficult thing when you're like trying to put out stuff and feeling like a failure because it's not been seen. I think like maybe people need to look at it from a more of a perspective as like, if you put out something and it got like 1 million views, but nobody had liked it or reshared it, then that would be a slightly different story. But I think because you can see how bad the reach is as well, it's like, okay, so not only is my post like not being liked, but actually only like 100 out of 10,000 people are even seeing it. And it's like, you have to kind of bear that in mind, I think. But like when it comes to trying to do something where you know it's going to be quite a burden, you want to make sure that it has like enough opportunity to get reach. So yeah, where that is now is hard, you know. And I guess, like I
yeah,
say, Warpcaster seems like a bit more promising, but trying to juggle millions of social media is also really difficult and unhealthy as well. So yeah, who knows what the future is with that, really.
yeah. No, I'm like you, man. I'm super bullish on Farcaster and Warpcast as a whole. So, um, yeah, I'm actually going to end up doing like an episode just specifically on that, because I do think it's not hype. Like the hype's kind of gone down a little bit now,
Yeah,
and I feel
sure.
like it's still in a good place. So yeah, I'm positive on it.
Yeah.
All right, to wrap up. So I don't know if you know, but like basically, on my podcast, everyone I've spoken to, I always ask them this question, and it's mostly because of like when I originally got started with this. Uh, the name of this whole like segment and work that I was doing was based on a Basque word for snack, because that was supposed to be like snack size information. And then it kind of just evolved into its own thing, and now it's not snack size. Now it's like, you know, a whole full on meal. So I wanted to know, what is your favorite snack?
Um, so I will say nachos, which I think is nachos and okay. I don't know if you saw my post the other day about nachos. Like, I made a Warpcaster confession and I said like like because it's not my favorite meal. Like that's dumb. Like nachos isn't my favorite meal, but like in a
Yeah,
way, when I think about it, I'm like nachos kind of is my favorite meal. And then I'm like, and of all the nachos that I've ever had, the really gross ones that you get in the cinema, which are like covered in like that like
big cheese.
bag cheese and like Doritos own brand salsa, are like weirdly my favorite nachos, which means that like my favorite meal is kind of cinema nachos, which I think is like disgusting, but at the same time, it's kind of like embrace the disgustingness of it and realize that actually cinema nachos are well nice. So yeah, like that's probably my favorite. I wouldn't say it's my favorite meal, but it's like it's definitely my favorite snack. And like I'll make nachos at home and make them with like really nice ingredients like organic tortillas and like make my own like bean salsa or like or kind of chili con carne or whatever.
Hmm.
um, and make it all really nice from scratch with like all the best ingredients. And it's obviously so nice. But then like something about those disgusting cinema
Yep.
nachos, that
Yep.
you can't beat. It's kind of, I guess it's like when people like, cause I don't eat meat. So, and it's way easier now to get like fast food burgers that are like, with like Beyond Meat and all that stuff. But like, it's like when someone's favorite burger is a Big Mac and like, in a way, like it is the nicest burger. When I used to eat meat, like a Big Mac is kind of the weird, like weirdly is the nicest burger, but it also is gross and like isn't the nicest burger at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the cinema nachos scenario for me. So yeah, I'll say cinema nachos. If that's too much, then maybe like I really like sweets. So I don't like desserts. I hate desserts actually, but like actual candy. I love candy, so probably like a bag of Skittles. I love Skittles.
Yeah, Skittles are amazing. It cracks me up about the nachos. So I had a friend who in university who loved the Big Mac. And one day I took him to like this really like bougie burger place near university, and it had like grass fed meat. Like you could find out like the birth certificate of like the cow. Like you knew who his mom and dad was. It was like really fancy. Like I don't know. Like you could. They knew what they were doing. It was really tasty. I really loved it. Like fresh ingredients, fresh everything. It's like the best of the best of everything. So it's like
Yeah,
an overly over the top like burger, and he ate it and he was like, that's good, but it wasn't a Big Mac.
yeah. And like I totally like I get it so
I
much.
get it though.
Yeah. I guess it's in a
You
way
said it
it's
tasted too real.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can really taste the cow in there, I guess. It's
Yeah,
like,
I guess.
I guess like it's like the old like pizza. It's like there's no bad pizza, right? It's the same kind of concept. Like there's a million different pizza joints and there's so many different pizzas, but like the cheapest like £1 or $1 frozen pizza is still really nice in its own way because it's pizza. And it's kind of, I guess it's the same with all of those kind of like sort of junk foods, I guess, like where you can go really high end and it's really nice, but also the really low end is still also really nice because it's just like such a good food anyway that it just allows it to work at either end of the scale.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, cinema nachos.
I do love cinema nachos, so I know exactly what you mean. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please share this episode with others who may be interested. And feel free to let me know what other topics you want me to cover in the future, or if there's anyone specific you'd like me to talk to. You can reach out to me on Twitter or Farcaster. All right, see you next time.